Hi folks, I'm Bob Sunday from Taos Stove. Today I'm going to do some burn times on different models of stove. The one that I have in front of me right now is the Titan. It's one of the stoves that I make that actually has an adjustability in its temperature, or at least height of flame, using a band around the outside. You'll see these holes on the perimeter, and now they're open, that's on high, and then when you turn the band and close it off, it'll go down to a simmer. And the one thing you'll notice, and we'll take it all the way through and we'll go to a boil, and then we're going to put it down to simmer and we're going to let it burn for a while, and then we're going to bring it back up to high again. And I'm going to tell you right now what will happen is you'll get a slight puffing kind of thing going, a popping action going on with the stove. It's just because all of a sudden it's getting a lot more air. You slow this thing down by cutting those holes down and cutting the air down, it drops the temperature and your flame goes down. The little bit of puffing usually is not a problem. And the one thing I'm going to tell you can do, when you open this stove back up, and you'll see me do it when we open it up, when you open those ports up and it starts to puff, if you'll just kind of blow real light and blow a little bit of air into those holes, it'll feed it enough air that it'll bring the flame up and it should quit popping. But it's not a problem. It's not a defect or anything. It's just what it does until it starts to warm up again and go back to full heat. So let's get started. I've got a grease pot that I'm going to use. It has 2 cups of water in it. And we're going to put an ounce of heat. And that's the thing. Today I'm using heat in all of these tests. We're going to put 1 ounce of heat in there. Pretty much. This bottle's pretty close. It can be a little bit off, but usually that's about an average of 1 ounce of alcohol right there. Now when you and it's good when you go to light this kind of stove. It's a deep-bodied stove, and it has a separate can inside it. Is keep the flame over it a little bit when it pops. I use long wooden matches just because it's easy and it keeps my fingers out of the fire. But it's so deep that when the fumes first light, they may actually want to blow the match out and blow themselves out. So if you keep that match over the hole, what you're going to find is if it blows it out, the match is going to go out. But if that match keeps burning, that means you got a flame. And of course you can always do the standard hand over the top of the stove until you feel the heat. So let's put a pot on here, and let me make sure my timer's on 0. We're going to start this cooking, or at least water boiling setup we got going here. There you go. And let's start that. And we're going to let that burn for a while. And what I'm going to do is after we get this started, I'm going to turn the lights down and we're going to see how it burns. And that's going to give us a better image of what I was talking about earlier about when we go to turn it down. You're going to see the flame go down and you'll see the puffing action when it comes back up. So I'll see you guys in a little bit. None of these stoves are carved in stone as far as their times go. Where you live is going to have something to do with it. The wind's blowing. It's all kinds of things. So when we give you times, it's kind of an average thing, something to look at. You're really going to have to find out how your piece of equipment works for you and the way that you cook. So, you know, I always suggest to anybody that buys my stoves, take them out there and take them in the kitchen and put them on top of your stove so you can't set things on fire if you get too wild, and just test it, play with it, burn a bottle of heat, see what the stove will do. That way when you're out camping you can say, okay, I've got to do this, I've got to do that to get my dinner cooked. And you're not sitting there in the cold or sitting on a log on the ground in the woods and trying to experiment with your stove. Just not the place to do it. Hey, welcome back. We've been at it for, let's see, 6 minutes 13 seconds, and I believe we've got ourselves a boil going. We sure do. Okay, it's 6 minutes 13. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to turn it down. Now, unlike your gas oven and stove in the kitchen, it's not an instant, bam, goes down and changes. What has to happen is the stove actually has to cool down some, and once it's cooled down and the air's cut back, that's what brings the flame down and it'll give you a simmer temperature. You're looking for just a light rolling boil going, not a hard rolling boil. How long it takes for that to go down. And I think right now she's still rolling pretty good. It does take a little bit, so you might want to think about it and go by sound when you're actually cooking something and your timing's a little bit tighter, just because you're actually trying to cook some food and not just boil water with it. So after a while and you get used to using the stove, you'll probably find that when you hear that initial sound and it's getting ready to start going to a boil, you go ahead and turn it down, because it's going to take a while for that flame to drop. And you know, if it takes a minute for it to drop, you still got a high flame going, and then it's going to keep going up to boil as if you had it running wide open. And we're going to dim the lights now, and I'm going to kind of show you the flame as it drops down and goes into the simmer mode. All right, as you see, the stove already, and you don't have that flame going totally across the bottom of the pan anymore. It's dropped a lot. So now, looking in this, we should have a, yeah, it's still boiling, but it's down lower than you would have if you had a hard boil going. And it's been about maybe a minute or so. It'll still keep going. I put 1 ounce alcohol in this stove, and what we're going to do is we're just going to let this go, and we're going to let it boil down, and we're going to leave it on simmer. And we know that it took about 6 minutes 13 seconds to get it on high, and we're just going to see what this ounce takes us to as far as dropping down to a simmer for a total cooking time. Not a boiling time, but a cooking time. Matter of fact, while we're at it, let's open it up for just a second and see if we can get it to do a little puffing like I was talking about it doing. You see how that flame just broadened out as I opened it up and fed it more air? And there's your puff. And I just blew a little air into the holes, and you notice how that quit. Doesn't take a hard, you blow real hard, you're just going to blow it out. Though this stove isn't easy to go out. You'd really have to blow on it like it was a birthday cake to get it to go out. So now I'm going to just go ahead and shut it back down, and let's just see how long we get a burn on the simmer mode. And something you want to remember is that right now we're just boiling water, and we're probably boiling a little harder on the low setting than we would if there was actually food in there. If you had vegetables in there, or you're steaming rice, all those things are absorbing heat while you're cooking them. And if you see my other videos, you know that I'm really into using these things to actually cook, not just boil some water and throw it in a bag. Kind of like to make a little bit more meal than that. So, so you will see a difference. All right, well, we got about 13 minutes so far on the total for 1 ounce of alcohol with the stove. Like I said earlier, we're just going to let it burn out. We're going to see what we get out of that ounce of alcohol. So I'm going to let the camera just roll now, because you never know exactly what's going to happen when it's going to go out. So we're just going to let it roll. You can watch the timer, and we'll see what it does. Thanks. We're starting to go down to the lower end of the burning of this ounce of alcohol, but it is still got a mellow boil going, and it's just about getting to where it's going to burn out, but we'll let her go. Let's just get a total, and it'll give you some idea of how long you can go high. I think I have this pretty much written down for you in my literature in the catalog. But but again, like I said, you know, wind conditions. Usually we shoot. I do a lot of cooking in my own kitchen with these, and then now I'm in the shop, and wind currents are different. Things move around. You know, we're not shooting with windscreens either, and that makes a major difference when you're cooking something, especially outdoors, that you're cutting that airflow off of the alcohol flame. And like I said, you can make you'll find some different numbers as you get used to using it. Hey, we're back. From the sounds of it, it's starting to mellow down, and let's see. Well, we still got a simmer going. So let's just sit here and watch the flame like any good pyromaniac would. I think you use these little fellas, you really do kind of have to like fire. You just kind of look at it. And I'm a double fire sign, so I love fire. Yeah, we're doing all right. We're almost over 14 minutes on simmer. This is a good economical stove. It does a fine job with an ounce of alcohol. Today I'm only burning an ounce just because I guess, you know, pretty much on a standard we look at what time it takes to boil 2 cups of water with an ounce of alcohol. With a stove like this where you can tone it down and adjust it, you can pretty much cook just about anything out there that you want to cook. Just because it will come up to a fast boil, and then it has a long simmer time. And again, I'm only boiling and using an ounce. This stove will hold a lot more than an ounce of alcohol. I don't think I would ever want to put more than 2 ounces in it. It has a fairly large fuel bowl, but it also has a set of ports on the inside on the inside fuel bowl, and you don't want to get too close to those. So again, I would suggest probably never putting more than 2 ounces of alcohol in this stove. And you really don't need 2 ounces to pretty much do anything. You can pretty much cook, like I said, anything you want to cook on a camping trip. If you're cooking just for yourself, you should easily be able to do most of your cooking with an ounce of alcohol or less. Well, we still got a simmer going. You know, and again, with a stove like this, you can see what it'll do with an ounce. You don't have to even put an ounce. You can put a ½ ounce in the stove, and after you get more experience with these stoves, you'll say, okay, blah blah, I'm cooking this certain meal. It's only going to take 15 minutes or whatever. Adjust your alcohol. Adjust that by how much you put in there, and you get pretty good, and you won't be wasting a lot of alcohol. Some of my stoves, you can reclaim the alcohol out of them. Stoves like this are a little bit harder, so you kind of have to learn about the piece of equipment you're using. And but it's no different than learning about your tarp, learning about your hammock, learning about your tent. It's just it's all practice and learning what will work the best for you. Hey, welcome back. I think we're getting pretty close to the end of this ounce of alcohol in this stove. You can pretty much tell by the sound of the pot boiling that it's starting to drop. Even in the time that we have right now, which is wow, 29:15. We just have a small simmer going right there. Like I said, this stove burns really well. It has a long boil time. I do a lot of baking, and I've got certain stoves that I just like to bake with, and this stove has all the attributes of a good baking stove. You can bring the temperature up, then you can take it down. It doesn't burn so hot that it'll just burn what you're baking. Cooking noodles, cooking rice, cooking ramen, it's just not a problem. But when you get to doing your baking, you just need a lot more control. And this stove will do a very nice job. If someone asked me of my stoves what I would suggest to use, this would be one of them. Alright, well, I think we're just about at the end of this burn. Yep, there we go. We'll stop that. 41 minutes and 31 seconds. That's long enough to cook anything you want to cook. Well, thanks a lot for watching the video, and I hope it answers some questions about this one stove, and hope you see some of the things that may be useful for you to use this stove for in your camping. Thanks a lot. That's Macaulay Culkin.